welcome to the NFL Contest Show. Finally, it's the fourth quarter of the Circa Millions contest. Only 5 weeks remain in the contest. There's only 25 more points to be gained, and I'm hoping to be able to go 25-0 and secure that $1 million first place prize. Man, it's getting exciting. I am so pumped up for the next 5 weeks of this contest. Last week, week 13, was a positive week. Went 3-2. The two losses that I took were pretty hard to swallow with the Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. Having real chances to cover the spread and win those games and just couldn't pull it out. Now, obviously, I did have the New York Giants on the video last week, but on Saturday, I did decide to swap them out, and I did post it in the comments along with the blog. I ended up removing them from the contest card and swapping them out with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were able to get the win outright against the Baltimore Ravens and easily covered that 4.5-point spread. So thank goodness for that. Otherwise, it would have been a losing week. But after week 13, with that 3-2 week, my current record is 43-21-1, tied for 18th place. Didn't really moved down in the number from 15 to 18, but still basically the same amount of entries are separating myself from first place. It's still only 2.5 points behind the first place leader. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility of being able to catch up with first place and potentially win that $1 million. It's also the fourth quarter, which means these 5 weeks starts the quarterly prizes all over again. And if you're new to the show and don't know, I did cash in the first quarter of this contest. So already ahead on the game and ahead for this year, but really hoping to finish it off strong these 5 weeks. And like I said, give myself a shot at that $1 million. Well, it's week 14. The Circa book has really got some interesting numbers for this week's slate. They've really put some big double-digit favorites in there, and we've also got some really good matchups with the way the season is shaking out. A lot of these teams still have a possibility to make the playoffs, so we're going to see a lot of teams that typically may not be that well invested in winning games, potentially giving their best efforts to try to see if they can sneak into that new wild card position that we have. But so there's certainly plenty of options to choose from. Hopefully I can put together a 5-0 week. I've got my 5 selections for week 14, so let's get into it and see which ones I like for this week. So the first game that I like is the Dallas Cowboys -4.5 heading out to Washington to take on the football team. Dallas is coming off their bye. They're getting a bunch of their players back, particularly across their defensive line. Looks like they're finally going to have their entire offensive line together. All their wide receivers are back and healthy. I just think this is a great spot for this Dallas team to get rolling towards the playoffs. They've struggled the last few weeks, but I don't think it had to do as much with the actual overall quality of the team as it had to do with the fact that they were missing key pieces throughout that team that really affected the overall efficiency of the offense in particular. And I just think that Dallas they're finally getting right. They're finally getting all their pieces back. And I think they're going to go out there and they're going to prove that they're a team that's to watch out for heading into the playoffs. Washington has been on a phenomenal run since their bye week. They've won the last 4 games, all 4 of them as an underdog. I just don't think that they're going to be able to continue that run. They're a scrappy team, but they've suffered some injuries over their last 4 games, and I think it's finally going to catch up with them. They've suffered a few injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Montez Sweat looks like he's going to be out this week. And then they also lost Logan Thomas, their tight end, last week. who's basically Tyler Heineke's second option in the passing game behind Terry McLaurin. So I just think that it's a really bad spot for Washington because Dallas is going to be able to put Diggs on McLaurin and kind of take him out of the game plan and force Heineke to try to find the other skill position players to be able to score points in this game. I don't think that the offense is going to be able to run the ball against this Washington defense, even though previously they've kind of struggled against the run because they are getting back some of their defensive line players that they've been missing the last couple of weeks, like Gregory. So I just think that this Dallas team is going in the right direction, and they're facing a Washington team that's getting a little bit more credit for their last 4 victories than maybe they should be getting, because outside of the Tampa Bay Bucks, the team they beat the first week off of their bye, the quality of the teams that they've played really hasn't been of an elite level like the Dallas Cowboys are, and they were very fortunate to win all of those games. All of them could have gone the other way. One of the things Washington has had success with has been time of possession. They've been able to control the ball, which has been able to cover up the fact that their defense has not been very good, particularly on third downs. So I think Dallas will be able to exploit this. They should be able to convert on third downs easily against this Washington defense. And if they can put touchdowns on the board, it's going to force this Washington team to try to play a game that they're not very comfortable playing. They would much rather keep it low scoring, try to, play field position and potentially win the game in the fourth quarter on a field goal, somewhere along those lines like they've done the last few weeks. They're not the type of team that's built for a shootout. And I just don't think that it matches up well for Washington. And the fact that they've been on this hot streak the last 4 weeks, the sports books know that a lot of people are going to be riding on that train. They're going to be sticking with Washington, so they made this line. It's probably more favorable towards Dallas than it should be, and I just think that this is a good spot for them. We know that Dak Prescott, in particular, is, I believe, 19-8 against the spread in games against the NFC East, and I believe he's 7-1 in his career as a starter against this Washington football team. So I just see all these arrows pointing in the direction of Dallas, and the 4.5 doesn't really scare me because, again, I think that this is probably a minimum of a 7-point victory for Dallas, particularly if they have to go out and pass the ball, because I know that their running backs have been kind of banged up, Pollard and Elliott. So if that actually makes the offense have to throw the ball more than they have been relying on the run, they could definitely put up quite a bit of points against this Washington football team. And I just don't think that Heineke and this offense is going to be able to keep up in a shootout against Dallas, and they're just not built to win that type of game. So for my first pick, give me Dallas minus 4.5. So the second game that I like is the Cleveland Browns -3 at home taking on the Baltimore Ravens. This is the second time in 3 weeks Cleveland will be facing this Baltimore team. Last time they played, it was a pretty tight game. It was a 6-point victory for Baltimore in a very weird game where Lamar Jackson had 4 interceptions, but the Cleveland Browns offense just could not get in a rhythm. They had trouble running the ball, and they just weren't able to put points on the board. And Baltimore did just enough to win that game. But again, that game was in Baltimore. This week they're playing in Cleveland, and Baltimore is coming off a very physical game against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, a game where they lost several more key players, particularly Marlon Humphreys on their defense. And this is a Baltimore team that has just been ravaged by injuries all year. And I just think it's finally going to catch up with them. They're playing the Browns, who are coming off their bye week. They're finally going to have the majority of their offensive line healthy. They've got both their star running backs back. Baker Mayfield had a week to heal up. Not exactly sure how healthy he's going to be, but he's obviously going to be better than he was the week prior when they played Baltimore the first time. And I just think that the Cleveland Browns, it's very difficult for a team to beat another team twice in one season. So this is just a good spot for Cleveland to defend their home field and be able to make this a 1-1 in the series between their division rivals. Baltimore, they've been a roller coaster of a team this year. They've pulled out some really tough victories, at the very end of games. They've been really wiry this whole season, but that type of luck isn't sustainable. I don't think they're going to be able to just keep relying on Lamar Jackson to pull him out of the fire in the last moments. We've seen that Baltimore's running game is pretty much non-existent if not for Lamar Jackson. And I just think the season, all the wear and tear that he's had on his body is just finally going to start to catch up with him. And I believe that this Cleveland Browns defense is going to be able to get after him. They're going to be able to put pressure on him. We know that he's struggled when teams are blitzing him. And I just think that Stefanski and the defense for Cleveland is going to get after Lamar Jackson. They're going to force him to have to throw the ball. They're going to, hit him hard, and they're just going to wear him down. And I think it's finally going to show, and Cleveland's going to be able to get the victory in this game. I know that I believe Cleveland's missing Njoku, one of their tight ends. They still have Austin Hooper. And I believe this is going to be a much more run-heavy game. I think they're going to get the run game going, something they struggled with in the first game against Baltimore. And I just think that the defense for Cleveland is going to be able to slow down Lamar. They're going to be able to key on him because they know they can't run the ball, and they really only have two receiving threats in Anderson and Marquise Brown. And we know that Cleveland's secondary has struggled at times, but they've had the week to get healthy. They've been able to scout what they did wrong in the first game. They're going to make their adjustments, and they should be able to go in this game. And again, with Baltimore coming off that very physical game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, we just saw the Pittsburgh Steelers get manhandled by the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. And I think something very similar is going to happen to the Baltimore Ravens in this game. So for my second pick, give me Cleveland -3. So the next team that I like is the Denver Broncos -10 at home taking on the Detroit Lions. Well, first off, congratulations to the Detroit Lions for finally getting an outright victory on the season. They won't be the team with no wins, so that's a bonus for the Detroit Lions fans. But this is just a bad spot for them all the way around. Right now, their injury report, it looks like about half the team is on the injury report, and that includes their RB1 Swift, their tight end Hawkinson. I believe 4 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen are on their injury report, as well as about 8 or 9 of their defensive players. So as far as their availability of their players for this upcoming game, it just doesn't look very well for the Detroit Lions. And they're about to face a Broncos team that has been playing really good football. I know they lost that game last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, but that wasn't because of the defense, that's for sure. The defense held that Kansas City offense to under 20 points. Just Teddy Bridgewater had some really unfortunate turnovers in the red zone that 20-minute, 14-play drive by the Broncos that ended in 0 points. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that. I had the Broncos as one of my picks in the contest last week. So, yeah, that really bothered me when I saw that happen. But we know this Broncos team can run the ball. We know that Teddy Bridgewater is a very good quarterback most of the time, even though he had some horrendous turnovers last week. And we know that they've got plenty of receiving options on the offense. And they're healthy. They're healthy on the offensive side of the ball. They're healthy on the defensive side of the ball. So it just looks like a really bad matchup for this Detroit Lions team that's probably getting a little bit more credit than they should for tying the Pittsburgh Steelers and winning outright against the Minnesota Vikings on a last-second play when the Vikings defense made a totally bonehead situational football move by not covering the goal line of the end zone on the final throw of the game. But, again, that's just a bonus for me because it means that the line isn't as inflated as it probably would have been had Detroit lost that game. But now they've got to go to Denver, and we know that Jared Goff isn't great in outdoor windy conditions. We know that Jared Goff really doesn't like it when he has pressure on him. And one of the things this Denver Broncos defense can do is get pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz. And they've got plenty of secondary players that can pick the ball off. And I just think that this is a bad spot for Goff, and I think he may have more than one interception in this game, giving the Broncos some real opportunities at short fields and being able to put some points on this board. I think that the Detroit Lions, after getting that one victory, at this point they're more concerned with just getting a good draft pick next year. They know their season is done. And they may put up a fight in the first half of this game, but in the second half, I think Denver will be able to pull away in this game and put enough points on the board that this big number, this -10, they'll be able to cover that fairly easily. So I like the spot for the Broncos. There's also a trend out there that when a team that was a dog of more than 6 points wins the game outright, and then the following week they're a dog of 6 or more points, they cover the spread only about 25% of the time. So that's a negative on Detroit and a positive on Denver for that trend. All those arrows pointing in the direction of the Denver Broncos. So for my third pick, give me Denver -10. So my fourth pick is the Tennessee Titans -8.5 at home, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is another team coming off the bye, another team that was going into the bye really banged up. They were struggling. They got blown out by the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans did, but that game the score was a little bit more misleading than the actual box score of that game. We know that the New England Patriots are really turning out to be one of the better teams of the NFL, as they're currently the first place team in the AFC. So that loss may not look as bad as it did a couple weeks ago. And let's not forget, with all the injuries and all the key players to the Tennessee Titans that they've lost over the last few months, they were still able to have 2 100-yard rushers in that game against New England. Had it not been for the turnovers, the 3 fumbles, and the 1 interception, they very possibly could have won that game in Foxborough with all the key players that they were missing. Now they've had an opportunity for the bye. They've been able to rest. They're going to be coming out motivated, and they're going against a Jacksonville team that is going in the total opposite direction. They've got disarray in the locker room. They've got a quarterback basically calling out his coach, saying that they need to get players in the game that the coaches have decided to bench. And now that player, James Robinson, the player that the quarterback feels he needs on the field, is not even practicing and potentially will not be in this game. I just don't think that this Jacksonville Jaguars team is very good at all. It's not really Trevor Lawrence's fault. They just don't have very many options on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line is garbage, and I just think that they're a much worse team than people think. So I really like this spot for this Tennessee Titans team coming off the bye to be able to get the win outright at home, even though they've got this big number, this -8.5. This is just a good spot for them. We can't forget how good the defense has played for this Tennessee Titans team the last few weeks, especially up front. They're another team that can get after the quarterback without having to blitz, so that could spell trouble for Jacksonville. And I just think that, again, Jacksonville is a team that's not very good. They're just basically playing out the season at this point. Who knows if Urban Meyer's even going to be there next year? Meanwhile, we've got the Titans, who are in a fight for the #1 spot in the AFC. They've got all the motivation in the world to go out there and put up as many points as they can in this game and make sure that this Jacksonville Jaguars team has no chance of winning this game. So for my fourth pick, give me Tennessee -8.5. So my fifth pick is the Chicago Bears +12.5, heading out to Lambeau to take on the Green Bay Packers. This is one game I could potentially swap out. I really need to see what the injury report is going to be like for the Chicago Bears on Saturday. But the way it's going right now, I just think this is too many points to be giving up in a division rivalry match, particularly the second game of the year where these two teams have already played once. We know that Green Bay has really dominated this series. Aaron Rodgers in particular has got an incredible ATS record against the Chicago Bears. But I think the books are going to kind of bake that into the line, and they've inflated this number quite a bit. We've seen in recent days that Randall Cobb for the Green Bay Packers is now out for the season. Devontae Adams is dealing with a hamstring injury, so we don't know exactly how that might affect him. And Aaron Rodgers has been dealing with this foot injury, which has basically kept him from practicing throughout their entire bye week. And up until this point, he hasn't been practicing at all. He's been working out on the sidelines, but he could come out and be a little bit rusty to start this game and give Chicago enough of an opportunity to hang around and be able to stay within this big number. The Chicago Bears, they're getting Justin Fields back. He's going to start at quarterback. They've got a few injuries on the offensive side of the ball. Their running backs are kind of banged up, and they've got some injuries on the defensive side as well. So I really need to see that injury report and see exactly who's going to be playing to make a final determination in this game. But as it sits right now, I just think this is a numbers game. And I also think that a lot of people may be on the Green Bay side with their record against the spread throughout the season. But eventually, at some point, those numbers tend to regress back to the mean. And I think this is one of those games where the books are they're just putting a big old number out there, and they're asking you to either, take that big number with Green Bay or roll the dice with a Chicago Bears team that on offense, you really don't know what you're going to get. And on defense, they've struggled, but they've also been missing some of their key players, and they have the potential to get them back this week. So we'll see how all that works out. If Justin Fields does play, I think he's got the ability to, put some points on the board against this Green Bay team that, although they've played valiantly throughout the season, this defense, they're made up of a lot of mismatched pieces, and I don't know exactly when or where they're going to finally have their regression date, but it's eventually going to come sooner or later. So I just think, again, this is just too big of a number to be giving up in a division rivalry game when it's the second game these two teams are playing against each other. Because we know how difficult it is for a team to beat another team twice in one season, and Green Bay already won the first game of this matchup. So for my fifth pick, give me the Chicago Bears +12.5. So those are my 5 picks for Week 14 of the Circa Millions contest. If there's any changes, I'll be sure to post them in the comments as well as post them with the blog. If you want to support the channel, go to deadmoneymedia.com, check out the blog, maybe buy some merch. There's some t-shirts, some hats, some winter hoodies. Got all kinds of different merchandise to choose from. Go ahead and check out the website. Maybe leave a comment below in the videos. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I hope everybody's doing well in their contest. If you're using these picks as bets, I hope you're making plenty of money. Let's enjoy this Week 14, and thanks for watching.